Okay, guys, we're back today with the Ryzen 9 launch. AMD has two new processors, the 9900X and the 9950X. Let me just give you a brief introduction of what these processors are. Okay, what I have here is the 9900X. I've got the 9950X in my test bench over there. These two processors are basically 12 core, 24 threads. The 9950X is 16 cores, 32 threads. This 9900X has a peak boost clock of 5.6 gigahertz, while the 9950X has a peak boost clock of 5.7 gigahertz. I'm not going to talk much about TDP and all that. Let's just move straight to the benchmark so I can actually get to the main issue at hand today. Quick note before we start off with benchmarks here. The data and statistics that you're actually about to see are basically data where all these processors have been tested with no limitations placed onto them. Okay, the main reason why I've done so is, personally, especially with these new Ryzen processors, AMD has placed a power limit onto them. Having this power limit on these new processors, Zen 5 processors, effectively kills its potential and makes it perform like the Ryzen Zen 4 architecture series of processors. So the first benchmark, we have Blender 4.2.0. Leading the race, you can see the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X. Second is the i9 4900K. Third is the i9 3900K. Fourth is the Ryzen 9 9900X. And then you've got the Intel i7 14700K, the Ryzen 9 7900X, the Ryzen 7 9700X, and so on. Next, we have the Corona 10 benchmark. Here is the same situation again. You see the 9950X having a huge lead. Closely following each other are the i9 from the 13 and 14 Zen. And then just behind them, you can see the 9900X, V-Ray 5.02. You can actually see how the Ryzen 9 9950X is clearly outperforming many of its competitors. Even the Ryzen 9 9900X is outperforming the Intel flagship i9 14900K. Okay, moving on, we have Cinebench R23. Cinebench R23, we've got single core testing and also multi-core testing. As for single core, the indefinite champion is still the i9 14900K. Closely following behind is the Ryzen 9 9950X, and then you've got the i9 13900K and the i7 14700K. Coming in behind the i7 14700K is the Ryzen 9 9900X. When we look at multi-core, it's a whole different story. We've got the 9950X overpowering almost anything in its path, followed by the 14900K, 13900K. And then you can actually see a very close fight between the 9900X and the 14700K. Okay, Cinebench R23. Why are we still using this? Is because compared to R24, R23 is more intensive for the CPU and it draws more power. And then let's move off to Cinebench R24. So on this, you can actually see that the 9950X is insane in terms of its performance. However, the 14900K comes very close to the performances of the 9950X. Let's not talk about the 13900K, but let's look at the 9900X and the 14700K. The 14700K and 9900X has very similar performances when it comes to single core usage. But if you look at multi-core usage, the 14700K is eclipsing the 9900X. This is mainly because of the number of cores and threads that the 14700K has. So, you've seen the data, you've seen the statistics that we've compiled over this couple of days. Yes, there are improvements. I'm not saying that the processes are downright rubbish or not. They are good. There are improvements. They are more power efficient. But the thing is, AMD has marketed these new Zen 5 processors for more of a gaming processor. The thing is that they're not that good for gaming, truthfully. That's the simple conclusion you can actually come up with. that these new processors aren't that efficient for gaming because they actually perform just like the Ryzen 7000 series out of the box. They either perform similar or they perform worse when there is that power limit there. However, things take a huge turn when you can actually break that power limit by enabling PBO. The thing is, not everybody wants to enable PBO. And also, by enabling PBO, not every game has a positive benefit to it. The pricing. I find that the pricing is really absurd this time around. Yes, they may be cheaper than the previous launch pricing of the 7000 series and all that, but my issue here is that there's just not enough performance leap to convince someone to actually go for these two processors. Okay, this 9900X is being priced at 499 USD. The 9950X is being priced at 649 USD. That's insane amount of money for processors. If we actually convert this to Malaysian ringgit, this 9900X would probably cost you around 2,300 ringgit. The 9950X is going to cost you about 3,000 ringgit. The thing is, when you look at how it performs and the benefits you get, the i9 4900K being sold at RM 2600 today in Malaysia seems like a more better option. Let's put the fact of Intel's issues currently with their processors aside, but let's look at a price to performance perspective. The i9 4900K, the i9 13900K, these are all processors that you can still get in most retailers today in Malaysia. The 14700K comes so close to how this performs. And the 14700K is only what? RM 1890, 1950 in that range. This probably is going to cost you about 2200 to 2300. So I cannot justify spending that much on this or the 9950X. I am sorry, but I feel AMD has shot itself in the foot with these two chips. But for the Ryzen 5 and the Ryzen 7, I think those are fantastic chips. And all in all, for both these two new product launches, I'm sort of in the middle. I've got mixed feelings. I'm happy about the 5 and 7. I'm sad about these two Ryzen 9s. So if you ask me, I think you either go for an Intel i7 14700K, 14900K, or the Ryzen 7 9700X. Or wait till the next generation. That's if you're a gamer. But if you're into productivity, you're into content creation, and you need a processor that actually performs exceptionally well when it comes to rendering, it performs exceptionally well as a hybrid workstation, then you might see yourself justifying the purchase of 2,300 and 3,000 ringgit on these two processors because they do perform well on CPU intensive tasks. But it all falls back to as what AMD is marketing this as. Is this a gaming processor or is this a hybrid workstation? Thank you. See you all in the next one.